gamer here. And today we're going to continue on reading Halo Reborn. Now, if you haven't already done so, as always, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and if you do like the video and the content that I'm putting out, consider liking the video. It really helps me out. So, this time we're going to continue on with Chapter 7, which takes place 9 months after the end of Chapter 6. So, without further ado, let's get into the video and the story. Chapter 7, 9 months later. March 11th, 2511. It has been 2 years since Axel became head of ONI Section 3, and in these 2 years he has made a lot of progress. First was the creation of the MCU, which would revolutionize military capabilities if the UNSC uses them correctly. Then there was the MPCR-1, which was better than the MA-5C and was a personal weapon for the MCUs to use. The production of the MPCR-1 was done, and each MCU unit was now equipped with its own MPCR-1, with a secondary weapon being the standard M6H pistol. After Axel reported the 1st Robotic Battalion as ready for battle, the top brass wasted no time in deploying them. Just 2 months later, on May 25th, 2511, the battalion received their first mission. Axel was selected as the mission's commander due to his experience and qualifications. Having gone through officer school and graduating at the top of his class, he set new records that impressed those in charge. The top brass needed to witness his capabilities in the field, making this mission a perfect opportunity. It would showcase both his leadership skills and the combat prowess of the MCUs in an actual battle scenario. Axel observed as the MCUs loaded up the Pelican with all the necessary gear. He had given the commander of the 1st Robotic Battalion the nickname Hammer. Hammer, Axel called out, catching the attention of one of the MCU units. "How much time do we have left?" he asked. Hammer reported, "It shouldn't take longer than 15 minutes to gather the rest of the equipment, Commander." Axel replied sternly, "Be thorough and don't miss anything." Hammer responded, "Of course, Commander." And just like he said, 15 minutes later, Hammer had reported that everything was ready. Axel boarded one of the Pelicans along with Taylor and a new addition to his group, Lieutenant Talia Baker, whom had just been transferred to the base to be something like the second in command for Axel. Once the boarded Pelican, the doors had closed, and the Pelican took off, heading towards space to land on the Orion-Class assault carrier, which would transport and support Axel in his mission. Trailing behind his Pelican were 4 others, carrying more MCUs and supplies for the mission. After leaving the planet, the 5 Pelicans landed on the Orion-Class assault carrier, where Axel was greeted by the admiral of the vessel. But he was a 1-star admiral, meaning that his true rank was Rear Admiral, lower half. But even so, they were still referred to as Admiral, since it would be a mouthful to call them Rear Admiral every single time. As Axel walked down the ramp of the Pelican, Admiral Josiah Wiseman was standing there waiting to greet him. Axel paid the proper respects that he should to his superior as the Admiral returned the salute. "How are you doing, Commander?" asked Admiral Wiseman. "Good, Admiral. How are you?" responded Axel. "I'm doing fine, actually. Thanks for asking," replied Admiral Wiseman as his focus shifted to the MCU units behind Axel, who were unloading the supplies from the ship. "And these are the robots that I have heard so much about. I've got to say I still much prefer a normal soldier over a machine any day, since you never know what can happen on the battlefield," said Admiral Wiseman, expressing his opinion of the MCUs. Axel didn't want to respond by saying something smart, since most of the UNSC was like this when it came to the AI, since they were afraid of what could happen should AI go out of control. But Axel has spent hundreds of hours creating the AI core for the MCUs, so the chance of something happening was less than 0.01%. "Well, Admiral, you won't have to worry about them going rogue if that's your concern, since there is a failsafe in place that prevents them from targeting members of the UNSC," explained Axel. Though he was lying, since there was no such thing in place. Adding something like that would only limit the MCUs, since what if somebody from the UNSC is discovered to be a traitor? Then with that future, the MCUs would not target them since they are registered as members of the UNSC. "I see. Well, that is a good feature that it has, but I still have my preference, and if we are at war, I would prefer to send some real soldiers than a robot," said Admiral Wiseman as he continued to voice his own opinion. Axel just shook his head as Hammer approached him. "Commander, the supplies will be done offloading after 30 minutes, reported Hammer. "Okay. Good job, Hammer. Just continue to offload and make sure not to disturb the other soldiers. We should be at our destination in about 2 months anyway," ordered Axel. "Yes, Commander," said Hammer as he turned around to carry out the task that Axel had given him. "It seems you have already been informed on the time it will take to get there, so I will leave you to your business and inform you when we get there," said Admiral Wiseman as he turned around and walked back to the bridge. Once he was some distance away, Lieutenant Baker walked up to him and said, "Sir, what do you think about the Admiral?" "I think he might be affiliated with the insurrectionists," was all Axel said as he turned to look at Baker, who had a surprised expression on her face. How so, sir?" asked Lieutenant Baker, since she was curious as to how he guessed that from only one encounter. "Let's just say it's a hunch, and I might have also looked him up and did some investigation into his career, emails and such," explained Axel. "But, sir, isn't that illegal? And since he outranks you, I'm sure that some of that stuff is classified information," said Lieutenant Baker, voicing her concerns. "Don't worry about it. As long as nobody knows, it's not illegal. Plus, while he does outrank me, I have special privileges when it comes to my position as head of ONI Section 3. And once I find the evidence that he is conspiring with the insurrectionists during our mission, I'll take him down," said Axel. "I see. Well then, sir, I will follow your lead," stated Lieutenant Baker. She was put under his command, and she would not betray him. Plus, if he is caught, then it would be him who is court-martialed, and not her. The ship had started to move, meaning that they were plotting their course and preparing to jump to slip space. This was one thing that Axel wanted to fix, since slip space just took too long. 2 months of travel just to reach a planet which isn't that far away. In the future, he planned to create a new engine which would completely change the way people travel around the universe. Chapter 8. 1 month into the trip, Axel was resting inside of the pelican, which brought him here. The reason being is because he found it to be much safer than his quarters, which were located on the other side of the ship. He didn't like this since he already didn't trust the Admiral, and he didn't want to risk being far away from the MCUs, since they would protect him should anything happen. But as he was resting, he heard a commotion from outside, so he got up and walked down the ramp of the Pelican to see some Marines in his MCUs mighty close to each other, and it seemed like the Marine was acting provocative towards the MCUs. Axel sighed and put on his boots, then walked over to see what was going on. As he approached, Hammer, who was face to face with the Marine, had turned around and looked at Axel. "Commander, there seems to be a problem," said Hammer. "You're damn right there's a problem," said the Marine as he pointed at the group of MCUs. "These robots think that they're superior than us, showing up at the shooting range and showing off in front of everybody with their targeting systems and taking up space in the shooting range," voiced the Marine. "But we are better," replied Hammer. Hearing this, the Marine stepped closer to Hammer. "Calm down, Colonel," said Axel as he noticed the rank on the Marine's uniform, which didn't mean anything to him. "I just want to see what these robots can do, since no matter how good they are, they can't beat the instincts of a normal soldier," said the Colonel as the other Marines agreed with him. "I'm sure somewhere in your mind you think that you're right, but you don't have all the information on their training and such, so don't say things without first knowing the full picture," said Axel, as he was getting annoyed as the Colonel for causing such a stupid commotion over nothing. Hearing what Axel said, the Colonel smiled and turned towards him. That's to be expected from Mr. Genius over there, since he's been given everything only because he's smart. "I heard that you actually broke a few records at the Naval Academy," said the Colonel as he started walking towards Axel. Seeing this, Hammer was about to grab the pistol, which was holstered on his side, but Axel shook his head, telling him not to. "The Naval Academy must have some weak officers if somebody like you were to break a few records at such a young age. And I guess they don't teach you respect to your superiors. As a colonel, I outrank you. So how about I teach you respect to your superiors as a lesson for the future," said the Colonel. It was obvious that he was suggesting a fight, but Axel couldn't be bothered to fight the Colonel. "Hammer, don't let these guys bother you and just continue what you were doing," said Axel as he turned around while yawning to head back towards the Pelican. Seeing this, the Colonel got infuriated. "Hey, Commander, turn around. Don't walk away from me," but Axel continued to walk away, ignoring the colonel. That's when the colonel grabbed Axel by his shoulder, causing Axel to grab his hand, turn around, and trip him, making him fall flat on his back. All of this happened in a matter of about 2 seconds. Seeing this, the other Marines moved into position and surrounded Axel, since he just attacked their colonel. I suggest the rest of you leave now, or all of you will be getting court-martialed for disobeying a superior's orders, said Axel. All the Marines looked at each other, hesitating on what to do, since they could get court-martialed if they were to beat him up, but at the same time, he'd already just beat up their colonel, so it would be justified. But before they could make a decision, the ship's own security soldiers had rushed into the room with the Admiral right behind them. Such a quick reaction, huh, thought Axel, since it was too fast for them to arrive unless they were already aware of what was going on, or the Admiral had orchestrated the whole thing. Stand down, Commander. What do you think you're doing? Questioned the Admiral, acting oblivious to the situation. The other Marines picked up the Colonel, who was knocked out, and carried him to medical, while the Admiral stayed behind to reprimand Axel. I could get you court-martialed for this, since the incident with the Colonel and the Marines, he outranks you, said the Admiral. Let me know how that goes, Admiral. I'm sure the top brass would ask the reason why, and telling them that I assaulted a Marine officer will only prompt them to ask more questions and launch a full-scale investigation, which I'm sure is something that you don't want, said Axel, as he showed a smug face since he now knew that the Admiral was associated with the insurrectionists. Axel didn't talk further and turned around to walk back to the Pelican, while the Admiral didn't do anything and just watched him walk away. I need to eliminate him, thought the Admiral as he dismissed the soldiers and returned to his quarters. His plan of using the Marines to incite the MCUs to attack had backfired, and now he could tell that Axel was onto him, so he needed to play his hand correctly or else he would be caught. Meanwhile, Axel returned to the Pelican and went right to sleep, not worried about anything since if they tried something, Hammer would not allow them to hurt him. Chapter 9. During the rest of the journey, Axel and his team were left alone by the Marines on board, as well as the Admiral, who made no further attempts to interfere with them. During that time, Axel started to plan for the future of his career, since he wanted to climb to the top of the ranks of the UNSC, so that he would basically do whatever he wants without being ordered around. Or his second plan was just to leave the UNSC and develop his own faction. The creation of the MCUs were just the first step towards his plan, because he wouldn't need to demand loyalty from them, since as their creator, they're programmed to be loyal to him. The second would be the development of more powerful technology. He already had an AI for himself, but that AI was limited in its ability. Instead, he wanted to create another more powerful AI that would not be limited by the UNSC rules and regulations regarding AI. But all of this was for the future. For now, he would focus on the present. After another month of traveling, the ship had arrived at its intended location. Eridanus II, where the insurrection faction called the United Rebel Front had become active on the planet. Previously, back in 2494, Eridanus proclaimed its independence, though a UNSC fleet responded 2 years later with a small force, which put down the militia at the cost of 4 destroyers. While the colony's government had officially restored its ties to the UEG, insurrection sympathies remained. And that's where we're going to end off for today. So this time, Axel and his team were transported to an Orion-Class carrier and prepared for the long 2-month journey to Eridanus 2. Now, the Marines that initially seemed like they just didn't like the robotic soldiers were actually orchestrated by the Admiral, who Axel had learned was actually sympathetic to the insurrectionists. So now, in the next one, we'll see how that all goes now that they arrived. As always, if you liked today's video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate you all joining me and listening to another episode and another chapter of Halo Reborn. As always, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you in the next video. Have a great day, everybody, and stay safe.